In the current Overwatch Pro scene, there are two players that fight for the spot of the world's #1 Wrecking Ball. The first is Fate, who led the 2021 Shanghai Dragons to victory in the Overwatch League Grand Finals. The second is Junbin from O2 Blast, who dominated the competition in Contenders Korea, recently being signed to the San Francisco Shock. Today we'll be analyzing the rising star Junbin's Wrecking Ball. On Nepal's Sanctum, Junbin always rolls out through coast into the Mega Health Pack. As you might have seen in every analysis video thus far, taking control of the high ground in the first fight is standard play in the highest ranks. He's able to win the 1v1 against Void, the enemy Doomfist, by controlling Mega, then immediately goes to assist T-Song, who's taking the Tracer duel on the other side of the map. He first chases down the enemy Tracer to force her out, then proceeds to shift attention to the enemy Hanzo, who's taking an off angle. This is a completely insane play for two reasons. First, based on the position of the Tracer, it's very probable that she's able to escape back to the enemy supports, so Junbin boops the Tracer, damaging and forcing her out of the equation, and proceeds to boop the pinged Hanzo, completely exposing him out into the open. Second, by helping win the Tracer 1v1, Junbin clears left, allowing his team to take control of the entire map, and sets up a crossfire with Ball Tracer on the left while the remainder of his team gains a free angle from main. Back to the game, Junbin slams down and sees that his health is low, so he immediately groups back to his supports. As a Wrecking Ball, once your position is exposed to the enemy, it's crucial to take time to recuperate and erase your presence from the enemy team. If you don't, you end up giving the enemies the opportunity to react to and punish your next dive. Remember how we took control of the left side by helping our Tracer earlier? That has allowed us to freely roam and utilize all parts of the map. It basically sets up an opening for a pile driver on the entire enemy team as long as we have control of the side. Nice rebound tech, but what separates a good ball player isn't just about mastering crazy techs. It's making sure that you approach the enemies from a blind spot rather than grappling into them head on, making sure that you don't get focused down or CC'd in the process. While cleaning up, Junbin avoids going in too deep on the Mega to avoid potentially getting booped off the map. Back in the day, one of the biggest reasons Carpe's Widowmaker was so dominant was because of his positioning. The consensus was that even if you were a gold player, you would inevitably get picks with Carpe's positioning. Similarly, Junbin's playstyle and positioning on Ball runs along the same lines and is a textbook example of generating value without solely relying on mechanics to make plays. Nepal's Sanctum only has one side route, so it's extremely difficult for the enemy Tracer to get value in these situations. No matter how much she tries to flank, she immediately gets cut off by the Junbin and T-Song duo. When the enemies realize they need to retake the side, our Ball makes an early flank from coast and into the backline to attempt a slam pulse combo. That would have been so sick if it landed. The checkpoint has already reached 90%. This round looks like it's already over. It's kind of shocking how one-sided this round has been, even with Void and Decay's Tracer on the enemy team. The Ball Tracer synergy and map control has been mind-blowing. It's time for Nepal Village. In an all-out brawl, Doomfist actually has the advantage against Wrecking Ball. You have nothing to stop the Doomfist punch, and the slow on his E can be a real hindrance in getting momentum for your fireball, so it's not a great idea to go head-on against a team with the Doomfist. Knowing this, Junbin grapples up top all the way behind the enemies. Once we have access to the side or back, the enemies will have a significantly harder time dealing with Wrecking Ball because they also have to pay attention to your allies coming from main. What do you do against a KROW who can cleanse against your classic grapple and pile driver combo? You first pressure the KROW with Fireball and Primary Fire to get the cleanse out. Then, you use pile driver to apply additional pressure. With your hook now off cooldown, you can head back in to pressure out the enemy backline. The key point here is to avoid regrouping with your team and utilize side and flank angles as much as possible to create an advantageous scenario for the rest of your team while you keep the enemy backline busy. Fun fact, you can hook onto the ceiling of the Nepal Village objective. Since the allies now have the numbers in our favor, we can now change focus to contesting the enemy front line, but the enemies manage to trade back with a pick on our KROW. Junbin waits for the Doomfist to punch before grappling on the point to make sure the hook doesn't get cancelled. With the enemies dwindling in health and numbers, we make sure not to ult unnecessarily. We roll in for a chance to stagger, but we have to be careful about the 2v1, so Junbin falls back to the right for a bit of cover. By keeping some distance, it's not easy for the Genji to poke us down. When Genji Tracer stops paying attention, removing the pressure on ball, we immediately chase back in. With both enemy DPS gone, there's essentially no risk in looking for picks in front of the enemy spawn. After disengaging, the enemies make a huge mistake, forgetting about the ball with ult and rushing high ground. After deploying the hook, we micro-control right behind the enemies to lock them into the room. We trade mines for beat and a pick on the Genji. With no defensive ults available for the enemy team, we don't have to worry about getting ults countered in the next few fights, which is massive value. Grappling above the roof, we time the slam into the enemy regroup. With no CC on the enemy team, we don't have any direct threats. Even if we end up in danger, we can easily escape through high ground or drop down to the Mega Health Pack to recover health, then escape back to the team. But really, until the enemy Doomfist is here, there's nothing to worry about from the enemy team. The Doomfist comes back to regroup. And we stay our welcome a little bit too long, so our KROW ults as an emergency with the enemy KROW counter-ulting as a response. The enemies start to overcommit in an attempt to maximize value out of Kitsune Rush. We attempt to boop the Genji back, then we immediately proceed to disrupt the rest of the enemy team. Every second, Junbin considers a million possibilities in his mind, and has an insane decision-making speed. His gameplay is super fluid. There isn't a single second this guy spends on doing nothing, which is only possible because after every teamfight, he always attempts to stagger enemies trying to fall back, which is something every ball player should be doing to maximize value out of your mobility. Junbin is a player well known for his active shot calling, and when coupled with Hisang, they keep finding value, staggering 5, 10, 30 seconds, and so on. It almost seems endless. But when you go for staggers and fail to manage your turn or ability cycles, the tables can turn in an instant. With only a few seconds left, Junbin rolls along to point with Minefield, ending the match with a GG. Hope this video helped you understand how Wrecking Balls can get value beyond just trying to mechanically outplay squishies with crazy techs. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.